Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining this Advanced HE webinar. I come to you from Orem, Utah at Utah Valley University, and I'm excited to be able to share with all the participants today one example of how you can utilize service learning pedagogy within an online modality. This has been a fun adventure for me as I've tried to figure out how to do this effectively, and there's been some learnings along the way, and I want to share some of those things with you. To provide a brief introduction, I am an associate professor of organizational leadership at Utah Valley University in the Woodbury School of Business, and I'm also academic director of the Center for Social Impact. And as part of my role there, I oversee the curricular programming, the coursework, as well as all of the service learning classes across campus. I've been at Utah Valley University for 11 years, and it's a great place to be, and we do some really cool, innovative things. Utah Valley University is the largest university in the state of Utah. We have about 42,000 students. We're what's called a dual mission university, in that we serve both a comprehensive university function, but we also serve as the community college in the region as well. So there's no other community college. So we are open enrollment, and we accept all students, and we have a wide range of students in terms of their preparation and their background and demographics. We see a lot of non-traditional students. We have a lot of first-generation students. We have a lot of students that are working full-time or part-time, raising a family, working in multiple jobs. We just see a wide variety of types of students. So that's a little bit about the context at Utah Valley University. And I want to share a little bit before I really jump into to my own class. I'll talk a little bit more about service learning as well. Before I do that, though, here's just a brief overview of what I'll be covering. So I launched a new fully online version of my organizational development and change service learning class this fall semester. This class, in addition to case studies, a variety of different types of writing assignments, and other learning activities, it includes a semester-long service learning consulting project that student teams complete with a community partner organization. These are intensive projects, and the students usually put in 30 plus hours at least in completing these projects over the course of the semester. I've been teaching this class for the last 9 years in both traditional face-to-face and hybrid modalities, but I decided, as we're moving more and more towards technology enhanced learning, there's an emphasis on my home campus to try to have more classes offered online, more degree programs offered online. So I decided I was going to try to move this service learning class online and provide more options for students. The main challenge, has not been the lecture materials, it hasn't been the case studies, it hasn't been the readings, it hasn't been all of those elements. It's been the heart of the course, a meaningful and effective service learning organizational development team project consulting experience. And how do you maintain that opportunity for students in an online class? That's the question, and that's what I've been working to accomplish this year and what I'm going to share with you today. I also want to say that I welcome questions and comments. The chat feature is functioning in Zoom, and so I believe if you have a burning question, you can share that, and I'll try to be responsive. Certainly at the end, I'll try to leave time that we can do some questions, but it's okay if you want to ask questions along the way also. All right, before I talk about my specific class, I want to just talk a little bit about service learning at Utah Valley University. And for those of you who may not even be familiar with what service learning is, describe just a little bit about what I mean by that. In short, service learning is an engaged learning pedagogy that allows us to connect students with the community by doing reciprocal projects and experiences that benefit both the student and the organization, and that reinforces and deepens the learning of the students. So service learning is one of many experiential learning pedagogies that we can utilize to help develop student professional skills, professional competencies, and to help enrich their learning environment while also benefiting the surrounding community. It's a real important aspect of service learning, though, that that the experience that you design for your students is very relevant and very directly tied in to the course learning objectives and outcomes for the class. So we don't just send our students out to do random stuff to serve the community, but we find opportunities that reinforce the curriculum, that reinforce the learning outcomes that we want our students to accomplish. And then we design experiences and opportunities and projects that will allow them to get hands-on experience doing those things as they're learning about the content and they're going to class and reading and going to lectures, that then they can put it into practice and they can actually go out and help a community organization while they're developing their own knowledge, skills, and abilities. So in a nutshell, that's really what service learning is, and there's a meaningful reflection component as the students think about their own learning process, and there's a lot of research that shows the benefits of the metacognition as well as the applied learning that happens in the service learning pedagogy. So on our campus, this is a big point of focus and emphasis. We're a community engaged university under the Carnegie classification. We make a lot of effort to connect students in a variety of ways with the community, and we take seriously our mandate to serve the service region and to be an anchor institution. And so we want to leverage our capacity and the resources that we have at the university to help address problems and challenges, social issues in our community, and to serve and help those in our service area. So you can see in this infographic on this slide just a snapshot of some of the things that we are accomplishing with our service learning programming on this campus. One of the things that we're really proud of is that our service learning students, they are more diverse, both in terms of gender, race, ethnicity, but also socioeconomically. They're more diverse than our general student population, which means we've been at least somewhat successful with trying to have inclusive programming and trying to reach out to a broad range of students across disciplines to have these types of experiences. We have about 8,000 students every year that enroll in service learning courses. We have 350 plus service learning sections, 250 plus service learning faculty teaching those sections, 750 plus community partners, so many community projects, and just so many different cool outcomes. So just a snapshot of some of the outcomes you can see here. We've demonstrated on this campus that UVU service learning students show higher quality of learning in student-faculty interaction, reflective and integrative learning, collaborative learning, and so many other things that really enrich the student experience, including enhancing their sense of belongingness on campus, which is important when you're a commuter campus, a dual mission open enrollment campus like we are, with so many first gen and non-traditional students, that we can help connect students to the campus community and the surrounding community and help them feel a part of the university, help them feel that sense of belongingness, and that increases the likelihood of them sticking around and completing their programming. Overall on campus, about 170,000 hours of service. That directly translates into 4.25 million in direct economic impact from our service learning courses in the surrounding community. And you can also see one of the big areas of focus on this campus is the retention, the persistence and completion of our students. Because we have such a diverse group of students, we want them to be successful. Taking just one service learning class has been shown on this campus to increase the likelihood of completion by 30%. Taking one service learning class increases persistence from semester to semester by 84%. And taking the cumulative effect of taking one service learning course plus an undergraduate research course increases likelihood of persistence to 95%. So we know that if we can just get students into these types of experiences, that their deep learning and their connection to campus and the surrounding community will deepen, and they'll stick around. So we're excited about that. All right, so here you can see some of the types of projects that I do in my course. So this presentation isn't specifically about all these organizations and specifically about the projects I'm doing. It's more about the course design and how I moved this service learning course into an online class. But I did want to start by just showing you some of the types of organizations that we've worked with this year. Every semester, I'll have usually about 32 to 35 students in this class. And I break them into groups. And so that makes usually 5 to 6 teams in each class. And then I go out and in preparation for the semester, I'll make connections with community partner organizations, local nonprofits, local government agencies, whatever, and have meetings with them and start to set up projects. And then the students form teams, and then they go out and do these consulting projects for these organizations over the course of the semester. So you can see some of the types of organizations. Catholic Community Services is up in Salt Lake City. Circles is, and Community Action Services and Food Bank, that's local right here in Utah County. Giant Steps Autism Preschool, Wasatch Mental Health, so on and so forth. Choice Humanitarian is an international NGO helping to alleviate poverty in the Global South. So many really cool things. And this course is associated, of course, with the UVU Center for Social Impact, something that we call the Social Impact Metrics Lab, or the SIM Lab, as well as within my college, or rather within my school, the Woodbury School of Business, our UVU HR Consulting Lab. So these projects are all associated with these different entities on my campus. Okay, so what I hope to cover over the course of the next little bit, and then take some questions, you can see here. So the main goals in my online service learning course redesign: first, developing meaningful social presence and student collaboration. I didn't want this to just be kind of what a lot of students expect in an online class, where they just kind of do their own thing. They show up, they watch some videos, they do the reading, they take some quizzes, they maybe have a couple of writing assignments, maybe there's a discussion forum, but it's completely asynchronous, and they just show up and they do their work whenever they can, and then they finish the class. So that's how a lot of students expect online courses to be, and I didn't want this class to be that way, because it's a different kind of class where the students need to learn about teamwork. They need to learn about the consulting process. They need to learn about project management. They need to learn about client building and maintaining client relationships. They need to learn all these things that are core to the curriculum and to the project. So I wanted to find ways to develop meaningful social presence and student collaboration, creating mechanisms for strong teacher to student communication, transferring that experiential learning element into an online environment, and supporting students in the online environment. So those are the things I'm going to talk about. Okay, so first, when the students come into the class, the first thing they see is the course introduction. They see a little bit about what the course is, a little bit about me, course description, how the class works, and they can get a real quick snapshot overview of what makes the course tick. And I try to be as explicit as possible to help them understand right from the beginning that this isn't maybe what they've experienced in other online classes. Immediately they'll go to my instructor page, so they'll see my, introduce them to my family, they see my contact information, They can get connected to my professional social media channels like Twitter and LinkedIn, and there's a link there to my WebEx virtual office. So it's an online class, so a lot of the students are local, and so if they want to come by my physical office and come see me and ask questions or talk with me, they can certainly do that in person. But it's an online class, so a lot of students end up doing virtual office hours, and we do video conference calls as needed. So that link is there as well. And then they can learn a little bit about me. I think it's really important in an online environment that students know who the professor is and that they know something about them and they feel connected to them, because that means they'll be more likely to reach out if and when they have issues or problems or questions, and they'll be able to resolve them. And what I don't want to see happen in an online class with a service learning project is that the students feel like they're on their own, that they're floundering, they feel overwhelmed, they don't know what to do, and then you get towards the end of the semester and they haven't done anything or they haven't accomplished much, and it ends up being a negative experience for them, for the community partner, and for everyone involved. And that's obviously not what I want for my students, for the organizations we work with, or for the university. Here's the grading breakdown in this class. And so you can see the main elements. There's quizzes, there's class discussions in each weekly module, there's case studies, there's participation and preparation points that the students get for participating in the various online elements of the course. And then there's a service learning project. And then you can see off to the side, that service learning project is a huge chunk of points. And then I break it down into all the different elements of what's included in that. And I think in any service learning class, for it to be successful, you need to scaffold the experience for the students. So just sending this at the beginning of the semester, giving them an assignment and sending them off and letting them do their own thing for 4 months, and then having them show up at the end of the semester telling you what they did, that usually doesn't work that well. And so breaking it up into manageable chunks and helping the students understand how they can over time find success in their experience, that's really important. So I've broken down the service learning project into a lot of pieces, and the students just make steady progress throughout the semester. They'll be in great shape, and they'll do amazing projects for the organization. One of the first things I wanted to do in the fully online course is to change the visual design. I was less concerned about the visual design when it was a face-to-face course, because I saw them, every week, and we had our FaceTime and the opportunity to do direct mentoring and coaching in class. But in a fully online environment, I wanted it to be visually appealing. I wanted it to be user-friendly. I wanted it to be something that they we're excited to get into. So the traditional view, we use Canvas on my campus, and you can see a screenshot there of what that class looked like. And I'd set up modules, and I would use the features in Canvas, and it was set up well. But you also had the scroll of death, where the students are just going down, scrolling through all the modules, and it's really visually unappealing, and it's not particularly fun or exciting at all. So one of the first things I did is just to make sure that it was more visually appealing, with landing pages for each module, with clear statement of learning objectives for the module, overviews, and then oops, sorry, I went the wrong way. And then as the students go down in the module, then you see all the activities. You see what they need to watch in terms of my lecture videos that I provide them, but other supplemental videos. They can see what they need to read, what they need to submit. They know what the class discussion is for the week. All of that's in one spot. It's very easy to navigate. It's very clear. It's concise, and it's just a better user experience for the students. So that was one of the very first things I did. Something else that I have done for this particular class, this screenshot's not great. I shrunk it down so that you could see that there's a quiz question at the bottom. So normally this isn't exactly how it looks, but the students would scroll. So what I did is I created an open education resource book for this class. The students can access like a physical copy of the book for cost of printing, or they can use a PDF digital version of the book, but I also integrated the book directly into the learning management system, into Canvas. And so the way it's set up is they can just go directly into Canvas. They can read a section. There's a quiz associated with that section. So it's embedded right within the section of reading. They do the reading, they do the quiz question, they move on to the next section, they do the question, and so forth. Students have expressed that they like that setup. It allows them to be connected to the material. I feel like the students are doing a better job doing the readings and staying on top of things that way. Something else that we definitely do in terms of social presence is having online discussions. I've always been a little skeptical of online, the value of online discussions, particularly in a big online course. And part of that skepticism has come due to the fact that a lot of professors, when they have online discussion forums, they just have one big discussion forum, and you'll have like 35, 40 students all commenting in one place, and it's not effective. Comments get lost, students start repeating what other students have said, and it becomes a checkbox. So students do what they need to do to get the grade, but they're not actually engaging meaningfully with the content or the questions. So one of the first things I decided I was going to do with my online discussions is to randomize smaller groups. So every week they have an online discussion, but every week there's a random group generated through the learning management system that's much smaller. So they only have 6 to 7 students within each discussion group, and then they have their discussion prompts. They have 3 questions they can choose from. They need to do their initial post by Thursday, and then they need to follow up with at least 2 follow-up posts to their classmates by Saturday. And what I've found is that the richness of the discussion forums has gone way up when I've done it this way, because they're in smaller groups. They're more accountable to each other. They have to engage with each other, and it's manageable. It's not them scrolling through endless discussion posts trying to find something that maybe they can spin off of or something. So that definitely, I think discussion forums can be used effectively, but that's not enough to create a good social presence in the course. Because this is a project-based course, the students need to meet with each other. And so this, like I said earlier, this isn't a completely asynchronous online class. There's synchronous elements. And in a face-to-face version of this class or a hybrid version of this class, students would be expected to meet weekly, and I would see them in class so I could then follow up with them, and we could talk about their meetings and what they are doing, and have some of those kind of informal discussions about what they're doing. In a fully online class, though, I don't have that mechanism of being with them face to face every week. And so I instituted this very simple weekly status report assignment. So every week, the students have to meet as a team. They can do that virtually through video conferencing, but they have to meet as a team. They have to tell me who was there. They have to tell me, provide a summary of what they did, the activities in progress, the assignments that they made. And this is a great way to hold them mutually accountable to each other, to develop trust with each other and openly communicate with each other so that they can have a better team experience. And then they send that to me every week. And then I know exactly what's happening in their projects. Without feeling like I have to completely micromanage everything, I can stay in the loop, and I know where they're going, I know what challenges they're facing, and I can step in when necessary to provide extra coaching, extra mentoring, and assistance, resources, whatever they need so they can be successful in the project. I've had students initially, especially last semester, the first time I did this class fully online, I had some students that balked at that notion of having to meet weekly and meet together in a synchronous fashion. They were frustrated because they're like, we're doing this online class. We want to do it on our own time. And they didn't like that element. And so this semester, I've worked extra hard to make it very clear right from the very beginning, the nature of the class, the expectations, the synchronous components, all of those different things that are really important for them to know and understand. And I had some students self-select out of the class. They dropped because they didn't want to do it. And, you know, frankly, I think that's okay. I'd rather have them do that than enroll in a class with unrealistic expectations about what they need to do and then drag their team down because they're not participating in full effective ways. I already talked about the open education resource text. So this is one of the evidences of student success practices. The cost of textbooks is so high. And so I created open education resource books for all my classes, actually, which are free textbooks. If the students want a physical copy, they can pay for the cost of printing. It's like $5. They can get a physical copy of the book. It's designed just like a normal textbook, but it's all open education resource materials. And most students just want a PDF, right? They don't care about the physical copy. They're fine with an electronic copy. And then I can integrate it into the learning management system. It saves the students, you know, at least $100 every class, every semester they're in class with me. And so that's really important, particularly for, you know, a university like ours with a lot of non-traditional students, a lot of first-gen students, a lot of students that come from poor socioeconomic backgrounds, things of that nature. I try to share relevant videos that are both humorous but motivating to help the students to set the tone and to help the students understand the expectations, and I do that early and often. Another thing that I do, and this is probably a combination of both student success factors as well as social presence, but I at periodic times during the semester, we do team consulting project meetings with me. So just like the students meet every week with each other through a virtual meeting or in person, they do the same thing with me periodically through the semester. So because I don't have a chance in the face-to-face classroom to do direct mentoring, to coach them and to help them in person, this has been a really great way to complement, you know, what they're doing in their own projects. And we just do video conferences primarily. And they can ask me their questions, we can brainstorm together, we can, if they're having team issues, we can talk through that and work through their challenges and team issues, and it's worked really quite well. Again, because it's synchronous, sometimes it's a little bit of a challenge to find times that work for everybody and to schedule it, but we've been able, you know, with enough preparation, everyone looking at their calendars and scheduling things in advance, it's worked out just fine. And I guess the other aspect of that is, though, I need to be accessible as a professor. So these meetings almost always happen in the evening because so many of my students are working during the day. And so, you know, if I'm expecting to have a 10 a.m. meeting with a team of students, that's probably not going to happen. So I need to be flexible enough to meet with them in the evenings, and as long as I'm willing to do that, it hasn't been a problem. I also post regular videos. So one of the first things they do when they come into the class is they get a welcome video where I walk them through the learning management system Canvas. I walk them through the class, how it's set up. I help them understand the expectations. I help them understand the core objectives of the course. I tell them about the project. I explain all those types of things. And just simply doing this and then providing weekly announcements via video and doing video lectures, you know, with my little picture down in the corner, it's super simple. I use a program called Screencast-O-Matic. I just use the free version. The free version allows you to record videos for up to 15 minutes. Which is actually perfect because I really don't want videos that are longer than 15 minutes because you start to lose the students. So having more shorter videos is better in my experience, and Screencast-O-Matic works great. So the students know me, they see me weekly, and even if I don't see them in person all the time, they see me in these videos, and they get a sense of who I am and feel connected to me. And that's important, like I talked about earlier, so that they will feel comfortable coming to me. In addition to kind of traditional lecture videos and orientation videos, announcement videos, I also do coaching videos and mentoring videos, because sometimes there's just key concepts or elements that are pretty much common across all groups. So for example, this screenshot is a video of, talking about working in teams and overcoming personality differences. So many students have had negative experiences in team-based projects for a variety of reasons. And it's, people often point to freeloader effect and people that don't really pull their weight. But what people often don't think about are some of the other dysfunctional behaviors within teams where people are controlling, people are bossy, those sorts of things. So we, in this video, I shared an example of an experience I had when I was going through a ropes course and some learnings and reflections that I had that changed my frame of thinking and how I worked with other people. And I share that with the students, and it's a short 15-minute video, but it helps get a really important point across. This is a screenshot of just a narrated lecture video where I have my slides that I provide the students, but then I walk through the slides with them since we're not in class. So I do micro lecturing that way in each of the modules. And then we get into objectives and assessments. So each learning module has learning objectives that are tied back to the course objectives and the program objectives, and mapping everything out that way as we should, as we try to design good, effective courses. And then we assess based on those objectives, right? One of the things that I do in this class that's really important, both in the nature of the curriculum, like the content, it's an organizational development and change class, and a big part of that is about successful organizations, successful teams, how to work together well in a team, how to help others work well in a team. So their consulting project, their service learning project, is both a live case working with a client, but it's also a live case in the sense that they're working together in a team while they're learning about how to work effectively as a team in the class, if that makes sense. And for many of the students, I get feedback at the end of the semester that this is the first time in their college experience that they've had a successful and effective team project, that they actually didn't want to pull their hair out and they just hated their team members. And so there's ways that we can set up team-based learning and project-based learning. And those are some of the things that we build into the course. But one of those components is group evaluations. So self-evaluations and peer evaluations. I have the students do this at multiple times during the semester so that there's no surprises. They know within the first 6 weeks of the semester how they're performing on their team as perceived by their teammates. So they evaluate themselves, they evaluate all their team members, and then their team members do the same thing. And they evaluate based on quality and quantity of the work that they do, but also they identify dysfunctional behaviors within the team and within their meetings and how the project is coming out. And they provide their comments. And so this becomes a learning opportunity for them. And as the students go throughout the semester, I found almost without exception, there's been one or two times, but almost without exception, teams work through their issues. They work through their challenges, their problems. They're inevitable. They will happen. There will be frustrations. There will be miscommunications. All those things do happen in any time there's a group or a team. But this helps them learn how to work through it, which is so important, not only for the curriculum, but for them to have a successful service learning project. They keep a time log. So individually, each of them complete a log. It's a consulting class, right? So they need to learn about how to track their billable hours, those sorts of things. And so they just have a very simple way to do that. And I have them turn this in at multiple times during the semester so that they're making steady progress throughout the semester. And I'm not just, what I don't want to have happen is for them to just procrastinate and backload and try to finish 25, 30 hours worth of a project in the last 2 weeks of the semester, because that's not going to be a successful experience for them or for the client organization. So they submit throughout the semester, at the end of each month to show their progress. And then they submit this at the end of the semester to their community partner as an appendix in their team report. And it's just one more mechanism to make sure that everyone's participating and contributing. There's rubrics associated with everything in this class, and I think that's really important in an online class so that all expectations are very clearly communicated, very explicitly, and that the students understand what they need to do to succeed. So here you see a rubric specifically attached to learning reflections. I have the students do 5 1.5 to 2-page learning reflections with question prompts throughout the semester. The very first one is before they start their project, but they know it's coming. So there's some fear and anxiety, some apprehension about doing, a team project, a service learning project in an online class, and they have an opportunity to think through that and to work through what they're feeling and thinking. And then there's 3 more reflection papers that they do at different stages of the project. And then at the very end of the project, once they finish their final presentation to the class and to the client, and they've done their big report and provided all their deliverable resources, they'll do one final reflection. And part of that final reflection is I want them to think back to their overall experience and get them to think about the overall arc of their experience throughout the semester. And a lot of times, the students lack a lot of confidence at the beginning because they've never done a project like this. They've never done a class like this, certainly not in an online environment. And so they're not sure how it's going to go. They're not sure how it's going to be working with a team. And so having them go back and critically reflect on the whole process and the arc of their learning is powerful. And it's rewarding for me to be able to read those at the end of the semester. But it's also really important for the students to have that experience, and then they can see how they've developed in their knowledge, skills, and abilities and competencies. They can see the growth in their confidence and their professionalism. So these are all the types of things that I want to have accomplished through those reflections. I also have the students do a pre-post assessment based on their attitudes about volunteering and civic engagement and those sorts of things. So I want to see how their experience working with these nonprofits, doing consulting projects, how it changes their way of thinking about social issues and being a part of the community to solve those problems. So pre-post on that. And then I always do client evaluations at the end of every semester. So I want the organization, the community partner, to be able to evaluate the students on the quality of their project. I want them to evaluate the students on the professional attributes demonstrated while their students were going through the project. And I want them to, I ask them to put a value on the project. How much would this be worth to you if you were paying a consulting firm? Do they intend to use it? What were the good things? What were the things that didn't work out so well? Do they have ideas for future projects? These are all the types of things I ask in this end of semester community partner evaluation. And it does a number of things. One, it provides good, important feedback for the students directly from their client, but also it helps me have good data on learning outcomes for the students. It also helps me generate new projects so that I'm set for the next semester, and I know what the students can do in my class. Let me see, how am I doing on time? I don't want to take too much more time, so I'm going to go through these next few slides really fast, and then we'll do some Q&A. So for example, in the very first reflection, I asked the students about how they're feeling. And so I get students saying things like, trepidatious and excited, nervous but cautiously optimistic, intimidated, a lot of anxiety. A student who said, although I've had some positive experiences throughout my education with these types of projects, I have experienced more frustrations than I expected, and overall I've not enjoyed my participation in these projects. So clearly from the get-go, there's some student resistance, anxiety, fears, thinking this isn't going to be what they're going to enjoy the class for them, right? But we also start to see students who kind of get the vision of it, and I start to see the resistance break down pretty quickly. So in this student reflection, if you look in the second paragraph, you can see one of the biggest complaints I've had over the years that I've been in college has been the lack of real life work that I've been able to do. It seems as though when professors told my class the materials were covered in the class, the points of the lesson were exaggerated and didn't seem real. This is one of the things that I feel excited about with this project, the real life experience that I'll gain. The work that I will be able to do with real companies will show me how OD is utilized in the real world, and more importantly, how I can help companies work with OD. so on and so forth. So the student gets it. They see the vision of it. They understand why the experiential learning is going to be valuable to them, both in their learning for the course, but professionally in the long term. And that's what I love to see. I love to see that students come to that understanding. All right, so what I've learned so far, and I'll try to wrap this up and take questions. You got to clearly communicate expectations early and often. That applies to any class, right? But I think particularly in an online environment, you have to structure things and scaffold things really well and be explicit, very explicit and clear with what the student's experience is going to be like. And so for this class, the way I've designed it with the synchronous elements and the team meetings, and they have to meet with the client organization, they have to meet with me. So there's these synchronous elements, and they need to understand that right from the beginning so that they can they can be successful. Initial challenges with those synchronous elements, like I talked about, particularly last semester, I had to work with some student resistance in breaking that down. Probably 80% of the students were nervous, but they were fine and they didn't really actively resist. But there were a number of students that kind of just actively were not on board and were kind of negative and were bringing down their teams a little bit. And so so communicating with them and talking through it and helping them understand the value of it and how the experience will benefit them is really, really important. Doing that experiential learning in an online course is a challenge. It requires preparation. I have to do some good amount of legwork the semester before to line up the projects and make sure the projects fit with the learning outcomes for the course so that it's really relevant. So there's a tight connection between the course learning objectives and the project and what the students are going to be doing. That takes time on my part, but when I do that upfront work, it makes for a much better experience with the students. And even though they may have some initial resistance to doing a project in an online course, they also start to get excited because they see the relevance and they see the value and they understand it, or at least they come to understand it. And what I've seen almost universally, not completely, I've had over the years, I've had a couple students that I haven't been able to win over, but almost universally, after the students stick it out for that first month, that even the students with the bad attitude or the resistance and the anxiety or whatever, that they get it. It takes sometimes a month, but they'll get it and they understand the value, and then they get excited, and then the project takes off, and that's awesome. Team challenges. Any team project can have team challenges, and when it was a face-to-face version of the class, I could see those in real time because I was seeing them in class every week. It's a little bit harder to do that in an online environment, but having them submit their weekly team meeting reports helps. Having my synchronous video conference calls with them helps. And then just trying to make sure that I'm really accessible to the students, so if they have a problem, they can reach out to me. Last fall semester, there was one team in my class that was having some very serious problems. 5 of the teams were great and they were working perfectly, but one of them was quite dysfunctional, and I thought for a while that they were going to implode and they were just going to break up and maybe have, instead of having one team of 6, maybe they would pair off and have 3 different teams of 2, just because they didn't seem to be able to work together. So I had to intervene. We had extra meetings. We had extra dialogue. I did extra coaching, and over the course of a couple weeks, I helped help some of the students have a little bit of a breakthrough in terms of their understanding of their own, what they were doing to contribute to the dysfunction, so that they could help resolve the issues. And the team reformed. Like, I was actually a little bit surprised. I expected the team to fall apart, even despite my intervention with them. But I was pleasantly surprised that the team shaped up. They started working together, and they had a really great project by the end of the semester. So as long as we're plugged in to these teams and we understand what's happening within them and we can intervene when necessary, then I think it'll be successful. And finally, I'll end with this. I think there's a lot of research that we can do with these types of classes. So with my class in particular, I want to compare the face-to-face version of the class with the hybrid version and the online version. I want to see the value of the projects to the clients, to the client evaluation, and the rating of professional skills and competencies, pre-post test attitude, instruments, and seeing, is there more or less impact, when the students are doing these experiences in an online environment versus in a face-to-face or hybrid environment. Team evaluation scores and self-evaluation scores, grading and other learning outcomes, student reflections, of their experience. There's a lot of qualitative and quantitative data that I'm generating out of this class every semester to help me get a sense of the successes, the failures, and the comparative nature of the online version versus the face-to-face and hybrid modalities. And then finally, class completion, drop, failure ratios. All those sorts of things are also things I can keep a close eye on, and have the opportunity to present at conferences, write up some papers. So that's exciting. But also, and really, the main reason why I do this is because I know that doing these types of team consulting projects, these service learning projects where students are working with a nonprofit, where they're helping address a social issue, I know that they feel excited about that. They feel that they're doing something real. They're not just doing an assignment, a project, and turning it into me at the end of the semester, and then nothing happens with it. But they're doing a project with a real organization that organization will implement, and that'll help them improve their organization and their processes, and help them better serve their accomplish their objectives and provide their products and services to their service population. That's exciting stuff, and it resonates with students, particularly young students. And so I'm excited about that, and I'm going to continue to do it, whether it's face-to-face, hybrid, or online. And I'm sure I'm going to continue to learn more things about an online class and how to do it effectively with these types of projects. But 2 semesters in, so far it's been working pretty well, and I'm excited to continue to tweak and adjust as I move forward. All right, so that is my formal presentation. That leaves us with some time for questions. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I see that there are some questions. Okay, Wendy Athens, actually a colleague at UVU, she says, kudos on creating OER textbooks for this course. How much time did you invest in its creation? How much time do you need to allocate to maintain the textbook each year? Great question. And I'm not sure I actually know the answer to that. It took a lot of time, and I've created quite a few of these. So all my classes, I use OER books. And oh man, they took a lot of time. I mean, there are resources out there, so it's not like I created them from scratch. I pulled materials from different sources and I pulled them together, right? But putting them together in a good format, so it looks like a normal textbook, so it's user friendly and it's appealing and professional, that also takes time. Building it into Canvas takes time. All those things take time. So I certainly wouldn't expect, every faculty member to do that, but it's something I felt strongly about, so something I worked on. But if you're interested in using open education resource materials, you should go look and see what's available, because there's a lot of really great stuff that's out there, and you don't need to create your own. I've done that, but you can, depending on your discipline, you might be able to find some really great materials that are just out there and ready for you to use, and you don't have to do any of the legwork other than just incorporate it into your class. So that's something to think about. In terms of updating it, yeah, there is some work in updating it every year. But I figure we do that anyways, right? With updating our slides and updating our examples and those sorts of things. Okay, another participant says, John, how do teams work together on a project for an agency when the members live outside the geographic region of that agency? Great question. And it comes back, it depends on the type of experience, the service learning that you're trying to do. So sometimes faculty want their students to do more immersive types of service learning. And so an example of that might be an emergency services faculty might want their students to get out there and volunteer and serve with the Red Cross in disaster response. So there's a fire, there's a flood or something, and the students go out and they're on the front lines helping the agency address those needs. And there's no, particular project or deliverable, but it's immersive. So the idea is to get the students out there seeing what the profession's like and serving along the way. This happens a lot of times in education courses, where students go into public schools. They help out with not just student teaching, but doing less formal types of assistance in the classroom. A lot of times that's not a project; it's just immersive. It's getting out there and helping people in the process. So those types of service learning experiences are going to be really difficult, if not impossible, to do if the student is online outside of the service region, right? So I want them to work with a local agency, but they live in Delaware. There's no way that they can do that. But for project-based service learning, we have a lot of great integrative technologies. We can do video conference calls. We can do document shares. We can work. There's so many collaborative technological tools that allow people to do work in virtual teams. So if I have a student who lives in Africa and I have a student that lives here in Orem, they can work in a virtual team with each other, working on a project with deliverables for a local nonprofit. That's totally doable. They might have to work around time differences depending on where they live, but otherwise it's totally doable, just like any organization that works with virtual teams. So that does require a little bit of coaching sometimes, as a faculty member, if I have students that are in that situation, but it's definitely possible. Kara asks, how do you facilitate students selecting their group projects? For example, do you ask them to rank their preferences? Yes, I do ask them to rank their preferences. I let students mostly self-select into their projects. So I arrange the partner organizations prior to the start of the semester, and I work with them to identify the types of projects they want to do. And then I build that into Canvas. So right from the very beginning, there's like project overview module where the students can see some introductory videos from the client organizations. They can see a description of what the client is thinking they want the projects to entail at the beginning. That usually shifts a little bit as the students do needs assessments and analysis, and they interview and ask questions and stuff. But at least they have a starting point that they know what the organization is expecting and what the organization is. And then I have a preference survey, and I ask the students to rank their preferences. I usually have about 6 projects per class, and so I'll just list all the projects, and the students will rank order their projects that they want to work on. And then they'll provide their second and third choice. And usually I get at least 80% of the students into their first choice, because there just seems to be a natural breakdown of how students want to work on projects. And almost always students at least get their second choice. And some students just don't care that much, as long as they, are on a project. So for those students that just don't care, it's not a big deal. That's when I go out and find projects for the students. That's not the only way to do it, though. And I know other professors that will send their students out. They'll have kind of articulated agreement sheets with expectations, and then the students will go out and find local agencies to work with and create a proposal of what the project would entail, and then the agency signs off with it, and then I sign up. I don't actually do it that way, so I don't, but the professor would then sign off on it. And then so the students going out and finding the opportunity. That way actually can work quite nicely if you have students that are remote, that aren't in your service region, taking an online course, and you want them to do an immersive service learning experience. They may not be able to do an immersive service learning experience with a local agency here in Utah County, but if I give them the option of going out and finding their own opportunity where they live, then they could certainly do that, right? Wherever they live, there's going to be nonprofits that need assistance doing the same types of stuff. And so I can empower them to go find those opportunities. Some professors also will form teams. I don't do that just because I want the students to have buy-in to their project. I want them to feel excited about the organization they're working with and the type of project they're doing. And I don't want them to feel like they've been forced into something. And specifically, since these are organizations that deal with various social issues, you know, sometimes a student might have some sort of a, you know, so some sort of an objection to working with a particular group or a particular project. So I don't want to force them to work on a project that they feel, you know, like is against their conscience or something they feel like would be inappropriate for them to do. So when I allow them to self-select, then that takes care of that issue. Another question. Oh, hi, Julie. It's just a comment. Julie Nelson, also a colleague at UVU. Good to have you on the call. So those are the questions and comments that I have received so far in the chat. Now let me pull up. I see in the Q&A there's some more questions, so we'll go through those. So Dwight says, I would like to hear more about your projects and community partners. Oh my goodness, I could talk for a really long time about all the different projects and community partners I've worked with over the years. Essentially though, the students are trying to help organizations be more effective and more directly fulfill their mission. That's what organizational development is all about, and helping them put in place change management processes so that they can become more effective and implement those things better. So I've had students do dozens and dozens of projects over the years with dozens of organizations, you know, helping them improve their situation. H. Rasmussen says, would you imagine that service learning can be integrated into a truncated 7-week fully online session? Good question. It would be hard, frankly, right? The short nature of the 7-week course would be a challenge. I suppose it just depends on the scope and scale of the experience that you're trying to design. Like if I'm having a student do a 30+ hour project and I try to have them squeeze that into 7 weeks, along with all the different tiered aspects of them doing that kind of project, man, that would be really hard to accomplish. But if I change that and said, no, it's going to be like a 10-hour project, and maybe I simplify the process so that they can get into it much faster, that might be doable. Or if it's an immersive type of a service learning course where they're not doing a project, but they can just get out into the agency and help out in the classroom or do whatever, then that could be possible to do that. But it would be intense, right? If you were having students do basically a full semester long service learning experience, but doing it in half the time or less, that means they're going to be spending a lot of time. And so you would need to make sure that you clearly articulate those expectations right from the beginning. Okay, is SL required for your course? Yes. So this is from Tiffany Jasper Butler. All students have to do it. If they don't want to do it, then they should not take the class. They should just do something else. It's just integrated into not only my classes, but our whole program. They're going to be doing a lot of these projects, and they just need to know that. And if they're not comfortable with it, then they should choose a different major, frankly, because they're over the course of doing my major that these classes are in, they're going to be doing 6 or 7 of these projects. And we just heavily utilize experiential learning as part of how we our learning activities. Are students allowed to do indirect service, perhaps an online service learning assignment? Again, in my class, it's project-based, so it's not like they're not at the food bank sorting cans, right? They're not doing that kind of direct service. They're helping an organization address their needs. helping them do organizational analyses, collecting data, analyzing the data, providing recommendations on how they can improve their processes, procedures, practices, helping develop materials that they can utilize in the workplace to help them be more successful. So that's the type of projects that I have my students do. They're not, so it's direct service in the sense that they're directly doing projects that help the organization, but they're not sorting cans. They're not tutoring students. They're not doing those sorts of things. Okay, well, I think that's all the questions I received. You've been a great group. It's been a lot of fun. There is a recording of this that I'll try to share on my YouTube channel once it's all like processed and everything, so you can go back and look at things if that would be helpful. I also welcome offline comments, questions. So if you have questions for me, you can connect with me. My Gmail is john.westover, WESTOVER @gmail.com. Feel free to shoot me an email and we can talk about what you're thinking, what you want to do. I meet with a lot of faculty on my home campus doing training and class redesign and implementation. So I've seen this work in a lot of different types of classes across disciplines, across modalities. I'm a big believer in service learning. And though there's challenges to doing it in an online environment, it is certainly possible and rewarding. So thanks everyone for your time, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks everyone.